So we're going to rock and roll here. Today I have Stanley Martone on the podcast. I'm super excited to have you on, bro.
Excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. Stan is a real estate broker for Calcagny Real Estate. Did I say that right?
Calcagny.
Calcagny. I say it wrong every time. I talk to Joel Grossman. He probably like, what the hell's wrong with this kid? So Calcagny Real Estate. Stan also sits on the board of directors for the Connecticut Realtors, and he's the incoming president for the Mid-State Association of Realtors. Stan grew up in Meriden, Connecticut, started his collegiate career at the University of Hartford before graduating from Quinnipiac. Family came over from Italy and has been in the restaurant business for quite over 10 years now, I think. Owns a restaurant currently in Niantic. We're going to touch on your life growing up, your parents coming over, instilling hard work, growing up, with the lawn care business, some of the other side gigs you had going on. Starting at Deloitte, you worked there for a couple years out of school as an accountant, I think a CPA, right?
I didn't go for the CPA.
Gotcha.
Because I was working 100 hours a week. But
I love it. Well, we're going to touch on a lot of things. This is going to be fun. Let's start with a little bit of background. I think that always gives a good picture of the person whoever you're speaking with. You want to know where they're from. So tell me a bit about mom and dad.
So mom and dad were both born in Italy, in the Naples region. Mm-hmm. My mom's parents were born in Sorrento. Mm-hmm. They ended up moving to Pompeii. My father's family was on a little town outside of Pompeii, which is where my parents met. My father ended up, staying in Italy until he was 21 years old. At 21, he came to the United States with my mom. My mom actually moved to America a little bit earlier. She moved to America when she was 9 and then moved back to Italy to essentially get married with my father, and, the rest was history.
Wait, so mom grows up in Italy at 9 years old, comes to the U.S., does high school here.
Correct.
She already knew your dad, though, before she came? Or?
She knew my dad before she came.
How old were they when they met?
I don't know. I have no idea.
But they met young.
But they met young, yeah.
And then she goes back to Italy.
She goes back to Italy, gets married to my father. My dad was in the service, so she would always send him letters from the United States, hope for those phone calls that would come in when he was, up in Torino. And
the service in Italy?
Yeah, service in Italy.
Oh, they're like an army.
Correct.
Wow.
So, yeah, my dad didn't know, anything about coming to America, but it all kind of snowballed when it was difficult for him to find a job. Mm-hmm. So when my mom moved back to Italy, they got married. They needed a job, and it was difficult to find a job in Italy at that time. This is probably in the 80s. So
living in the Naples area.
Living in the Pompeii, Naples area. So what happened was my father was a little desperate to find a job, and back then you paid into the mafia. So I think you had to, get $6,000 or some absurd amount of money together to buy yourself into the mafia so you would have a job.
And what does that mean, by the way? It doesn't mean you become a mafia. You just work for the mob and they give you a job.
Correct. Right. So
how do you come up with the $6,000? Any idea? You had to whack somebody?
I'm sure there's an initiation type of entrance.
Yeah.
So as soon as my mom heard that, she said, "No way, you're doing this," and she barged right into the boss's office or restaurant or whatever type of speakeasy they're a part of, and demanded the money back and said, "We're going to America. There's an opportunity in America," and that's what they ended up doing. So
your dad gave the money, and your mom went in and said, "It's not happening." It took it back.
Took it back.
Unreal.
Yeah. So it was sketchy. We have some family that
might still be there.
That is still there. Is still there. 3/4 of my father's family is still in Italy, and it's unbelievable that things like this still do exist. But they came to America for the opportunity, and that's exactly what they did. when my parents actually ended up coming to America, my dad was working in a factory with Italian-only speaking people, which it was difficult for them to learn English. You know, my mother knew English, but my father, it was just so hard working with Italians all day.
Yeah. Oh, to
to break away and start speaking English. So that was one of my dad's setbacks when he came here at the age of 21. And, you know, from working in the factory, he used to work 2-3 jobs at a time. And it was an incredible story because my dad's dreams and aspirations of coming to America seemed so far-fetched. He left his parents in Italy. He left his sister in Italy. So coming here by himself on a limb with a woman that he just married, I'm sure must have been difficult.
Yeah.
Not knowing the English language. So there were a lot of barriers that he kind of had to tackle in those early years.
I think it's so interesting that he came to the U.S. with your mom. If your mom wasn't in the U.S., though, they would not known about that opportunity. They wouldn't even know better. It's like the name something would have been on their radar. And that happens in life so much is that sometimes you don't realize what's out there and what opportunities are there.
That's exactly it.
Lucky that mom was here and brought him back. So your dad and your mom, both hard workers. Dad had 3 jobs at all times, you said, right? So he was at the factory and he did some other things as well?
Yep. Cleaned some offices. He did a lot of mail production for a lot of the bigger companies like Penny Bowes, and he worked at a company called Hartford Direct. You know, so over the years, it was a lot of mail production, Italian factories, cleaning offices at night. So any way that he could, you know, make a buck, he would absolutely do that. And that's kind of how my sister and I grew up, to see our parents constantly working. The sacrifice of them going out to work and maybe not being able to make every single one of our soccer games or sporting events. It was definitely hard as a child to maybe not see your parents at every single game. But it really made up for it when you did see them there because you knew what the goal was. Yeah. And they made it evident in our household that, you know, we're a family. We're going to work together. We're going to, you know, get through this. And at no point in my childhood was I nervous about having a roof over my head. Yeah. Because I knew that my parents were dedicated. They worked hard. They didn't let a day go by without working. If they were sick, it didn't mean anything. Yeah. Just get up, put your clothes on, shower, go to work. And that's kind of the mentality that my sister and I picked up. My brother was a surprise. He kind of came at a little bit later age in our childhood. So for a little while, it was just me and my sister. And, you know, going to work and seeing our parents go to work, it instilled that work ethic in us at an early age.
Wow. You say mom and dad bought, 3 properties in Meriden, was it? In the first 6 years in the U.S.?
Yeah, their first
all multifamilies.
Yeah, all multifamilies except for one. One was the single family that we were actually raised in, so it was our family house. But the first property was a 4-family in Meriden, and my dad did anything in his power to actually. Let me take that back. The first property that he purchased was a 2-family. He lived there for a little while. He bought it for essentially nothing. I think it might have been right around $100,000. Yep. This is in the 90s. I think the rates were 12-ish%. Yeah. So the rates were outrageous. But he bought it. He didn't have a lot of money for a down payment, so that's one of the reasons why he worked the 2-3 jobs. He worked nights. He was on limited sleep, and he essentially said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save up for this down payment. He lived in one of the units. He rented the other one for a little while in the beginning. As soon as he was able to get a little bit of rent money, continue working the 2-3 jobs, he ended up buying a 4-family. The 4-family in Meriden was, you know, not in the greatest area of Meriden. But I could see the way that his tenants actually looked up to him, because my dad did whatever to take care of that property and make these people live in a better environment. So it was good to see. And I was always going there to collect rent with him, and a lot of the rent was cash. And one day I didn't know what rent was at such an early age.
Yeah.
So when he would collect $400 a month from a unit, you know, I was like, oh my God, he's got to take that and bring that to the bank because that's his mortgage payment. One day he said, you want a foosball table? And he took me to, you know, whatever, Dick's Sporting Goods and bought me a foosball table. I thought we committed a crime because I didn't know, you know, what was going on. So yeah, he had the 2-family. From there, it was time for us to really make a step into the family house, move out of the multifamily living situation.
You lived in the multi for a bit?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so that's where I was born. And he identified our family house. It was in a really nice neighborhood in Meriden, right up the street from Platt High School, where I went to high school. And they took a leap of faith and really just saved more money for that next down payment, rented the other house.
Yeah.
So now my parents had 6 units, you know, rented. My dad spoke broken English and really didn't know what the next step was. He was working blue-collar jobs, like just very low on the totem pole type jobs. So still didn't have a lot. They worked their butts off. Essentially, they were counting on the rent to
supplement their lifestyle.
Yeah, and to pay the mortgages. I mean, the mortgages were, you know, whatever the rent was, that's what the mortgage was. With the rate so high, I know they paid a little bit less, but they really counted on that rent. That one day somebody, you know, kind of made my mom nervous. My mom's a nervous Nelly, Nelly, and said, "Oh my God, if these people stop paying rent, you guys, you're gonna go under." So it made my mom extremely nervous, and you know, forced my dad to sell the 4-family. As soon as my dad left the closing for that 4-family, actually he sold both of the properties. As soon as he closed on those properties, he pretty much sold them simultaneously.
No way.
And
how do you feel after?
He felt like crap, and he knew that it was probably one of the biggest mistakes of his life. Because he no longer had those 6 units that he would be collecting rent on. It didn't stop him from investing in real estate. He ended up taking that money and putting them into flips. So the next chapter of my dad's life, in addition to his regular W-2 income, was flipping houses. And that's...
Did he do the work himself?
He didn't do all of the work himself. He really just GC'd the job.
Had subs from all the Italian guys that were working at the factory.
Exactly.
Literally,
to be honest, we used to meet up at the hair salon where we used to get our haircuts, and you met contractors here, contractors there, and it was, you know, hey, I need a bathroom, I need a kitchen. Oh, Luigi, whatever. So that's kind of how it started. He started to flip a couple properties. He liked it. He wanted to get back into multifamilies and real estate investments. So he ended up buying another duplex-styled investment and, just built his portfolio back up.
Awesome.
Because it was...
he was disappointed in leaving there.
He was pissed.
So you grew up, you're plowing driveways, you're code attendant, dishwasher. What else do you have going on? You did a lot of stuff growing up.
Yeah, so one of my dad's gigs in the winter was, put a plow on the truck. I'm going to go plow driveways. I'm going to charge 40, 50, 60 bucks. And he brought me along at the age of 10. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a cold winter day. It was snowing outside, and my mom was making me chicken soup. and I loved my mom's chicken soup. And my dad said, put your coat on, put your hat on, grab your gloves. You're coming with me. I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
I was literally watching a cartoon, eating chicken soup, doing a puzzle on the table with my mother. And my dad said, you're coming with me. I didn't know what to expect. I've never went to work. I knew my parents went to work, but I didn't know what going to work was. So a part of me was a little apprehensive, and a part of me was a little excited.
Yeah.
And, bundled up, put my snowsuit on, my hat, 10 years old. How old could you be? I can't even remember what I was doing other than just watching cartoons and waiting for home-cooked meals from my mother. So we went in the truck. I used to have to do the little shoveling sidewalks and the stairs, and while my dad plowed. And, we worked probably 10, 12 hours just doing driveways. We drove around neighborhoods, and anybody that needed help or to get out, we would help them. So I think probably by the age of 10, I was really just doing a lot of sitting in the truck.
But at least you were out seeing it happen,
I was out seeing it happen. I saw my dad, collecting money. I was super excited. I didn't know, the value of money at the time. So when we were done, like I said, we were out there for 10, 12 hours. Yeah. And when we pulled into the driveway, my dad, hands me a $20 bill. And I crumbled it up. I threw it in my pocket. Didn't know what to do with it. Went inside at our house, went downstairs. My mom was ironing like the normal Italian mom would. And I pushed her aside, took the crumbled $20 bill out of my pocket, and I started to iron it. And I used that was the point in time in my life that I said I need to make more. And ever since, I've been a workaholic. I've constantly worked. I started dishwashing and picking up some hours at my close family members' restaurant. So I was hanging up, ladies' mink coats. And after I hung up the coats when the guests arrived, I ended up changing my shirt, taking my, black button-down shirt off, had a white T-shirt underneath. I was washing dishes in the back. And that's what I did. And I got handed $40, $50, $60, $70 at the end of the night in addition to the tips. So that all got added into the shoebox that I secretly had in my closet. And the shoebox was, looked pretty empty for a long time. But it was it was that point in my life. I mean, I was 12, 13, 14 years old at this point. So I still didn't know what I could do with this money.
That's young, by the way.
Yeah. Other than, buying a Nintendo game.
Yeah.
So, I just kept saving it. I didn't know what I was saving it for. I didn't have a dream. I didn't like to, I guess like today, I still don't like to spend a lot of money. But I didn't spend any money because I didn't know what to spend it on.
Yeah.
A lot of my time was caught up working. So I didn't have a whole lot of leisurely go out and spend at the store's time. Used to go to school, get out of school. I started a little landscaping business after school. So from 2 to 5, I would cut lawns and rake up leaves and do whatever. I used my dad's gas, my dad's tractor, my dad's blower, my dad's weed whacker. And I went up to every single house and I said, I'll mow your lawn for $20. And everybody's like, oh my God, I got an acre of land. This is a bargain. Of course we'll let the 12-year-old mow our lawn. And so that's kind of how it started. And I went to every...
I've got an acre of land, of course.
I went to every single neighbor. So I ended up acquiring the whole street. I had a friend that, was doing the same thing in his neighborhood. So we didn't live too far. So we joined forces. We did his whole neighborhood. Then we did my whole neighborhood. And we had 2 machines going at all times. And, the $20, the first leaf job that, we took on, that was, there were trees everywhere. There were leaves everywhere. These people had 4 huge 100+ pound dogs.
Yeah.
We took our tractors in and there was crap all over the yard. These people didn't clean up after their pets. And I ended up quoting the guy like $40 to do all of his leaves, sucked them up, raked them up, like the whole 9 yards. I said, well, bag them up with the tractor and get the big blowers. And, I kind of grew a set and said, you need to give me at least another $120 on top of the 40 that I quoted you, because we were just covered. I mean, the wheels were turning out on the machines. And
dog shit?
Dog shit was all over us. I mean, I couldn't go home. My mother would have, taken the hose and
should have thought, what's wrong with my son playing with dog shit?
I know. So that was like the first.
Did you get the 120?
Oh yeah, he gave it to us. Didn't ask any questions, and that's what gave me the fire to make the ask. Sometimes making the ask, people get inside their head and they're like, well, if I don't make the ask, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little apprehensive, I don't think they're going to pay it. But that was the first time in my life that I was able to make the ask, because I didn't know what things were worth.
Yeah.
So making that ask and going up to that guy with 4 big dogs barking at me, being held back by cages, allowed me to really kind of catapult and understand, the value of money. And, I spent 3 hours at his house. I couldn't do it for $40. I wasted, 4 tanks of gas. So it started with that. 2 to 5 was really lawn mowing, and all that cleanup. And then straight from 5 o'clock, I didn't even have my license at this point. My mother used to wait for me in the driveway, and she used to, get me changed, shower quick, bring me to the restaurant.
And then you do coats and dishwasher.
And then I would do coats and dishwasher. So it was, just work till 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, as a young kid.
I love it.
So
you go to Platt for high school in Meriden, right? And then you start at University of Hartford. How many years do you do that there?
I did 1 year there. So University of Hartford gave me a full ride on academics. I still had to pay for room and board.
Yep.
But I thought it was the best bang for my buck, because at this point, you work so hard for all of this money. I went to the school that gave me the most amount of money.
Yep.
And loved it. So paid for room and board.
Yep.
I applied to become an RA because I didn't want to pay room and board.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's exactly like how it started. So I was offered the RA position, but my dad got a job at Quinnipiac. So I was getting full tuition at Quinnipiac. So he asked me if I wanted to transfer. I went to take a look at the campus, fell in love with it. My only reservation was I'm not going to be able to be an RA here. So I'm going to have to come out of pocket with $7,000 for my first semester for room and board. So although tuition was covered, I already made the step at University of Hartford to be an RA. My parents said, listen, we'll take care of it. We'll pay for it. See if you could become an RA at Quinnipiac if this is where you want to be. And that's exactly what I did. I actually went to Quinnipiac, was in transfer housing, completed one semester. Normally you have to wait a year, but I wrote Res Life a letter stating that, hey, I was offered an RA position at University of Hartford. Are we able to transfer it here? They ended up having an opening midway through the year, so I didn't have to pay room and board that second half of my sophomore year.
Yep.
And I was an RA up and through my grad year. So I essentially went to school for absolutely nothing. And I didn't just become an RA to get free room and board. I mean, that was
a big
obviously a big perk. It was an extremely big help because I only lived 15, 20 minutes from home. So justifying $15,000 a year to live on campus versus commuting, it was just kind of a no-brainer. So that's I got in mid-year, became an RA, got my room and board covered, did it my whole, my whole college career, and met a ton of people. The residents that we had, I was able to really just kind of empower them and get them started on their journey. And the people that didn't get involved, really, they didn't like the school. They ended up transferring out. They're like, I don't like it here. I don't fit in here. And that was kind of the first time in my life where it wasn't really just about money. It was about experience. It was about network. It was about meeting people and doing things. So I used to tell a lot of my first year residents to say yes more often. And if you say yes more often, you're really able to try things that you don't normally try. So giving them that advice, I really got a lot of kids involved into different things, whether it was club and sports, fraternities, sororities, all of those things. By saying yes more often, by going to that involvement fair, it really allowed us an opportunity to connect and grow together, because as my residents got more involved, my reach became a lot further. In college, I also learned how to cut hair.
No way.
Just another way for me to make money. I was on campus. Room and board was covered, but I needed money to go out with my friends, because every time somebody would buy a round of shots, it just became extremely expensive.
Yeah.
So I learned how to cut hair, and by my senior year, I taught one of my other friends how to cut hair. So we had 2 chairs hooked up in the community bathroom every Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
No way.
And again, the value of me cutting someone's hair was, in the beginning I was charging $10 because I wasn't that great.
Yeah.
Well, towards the end, I really started charging $20 to $25. And if you kind of put it into perspective, that was 2012, 2013. So that was probably the going rate at a barbershop for a haircut.
Like scissor cut, or you just buzzers?
In the beginning, it was just buzzers. Yeah. I've since learned how to do scissor cut.
Yeah.
But everybody that came in, I just buzzed them really quick and gave them a nice fade, touched up their beard.
Yeah.
And it was $20-25.
Hot towel, bang, bang, you're out of here.
I love it, dude. So
that is so funny. And you meet your wife at QU. What's the story there?
So I met my wife in 2011. I was rushing a fraternity, so I was a pledge. And, this was at Quinnipiac. So transferred, was pledging. I was put on designated driver duty that night, the night of the party that I really wanted to attend. So it was with the dance team, kick line. It was, the best party of the year, let's put it that way. And they designated me as the designated driver. So I was a little upset, but I'm like, all right, well, what's the worst that could happen? I could drive some people home, and I could meet someone, blah, blah, blah. Well, I did just that. We were at what's called the Brick. That was the name of the house. Yep. The name of the house was the Brick. And my wife was extremely drunk and needed a ride home.
Yep.
And that's what I did. I ended up driving her home.
She had a couple cocktails.
My wife had a couple of cocktails. She had one too many.
Yeah.
And, we didn't know each other. She told me that she was on the dance team. I thought that was awesome.
Yep.
Ended up driving her home, amongst other people. But I think she was my last ride of the night, I think. No. So, fast forward a couple of years when my wife and I got engaged, they were demoing the Brick, the house, and my wife pulled off onto the side of the construction site, ran out, grabbed 2 bricks, and actually got them engraved with when we got engaged and when we got married. And they were from that house. That's kind of where we met. So
unreal.
Those are still sitting in my house today. They're engraved, and it's just a good memorabilia.
That is awesome. That's really cool. That's a good story.
Yeah.
So you graduate from QU and you start working at Deloitte in Stanford, right?
Yeah.
Do you move to Stanford or do you commute? What do you?
Not right off the bat. So again, I didn't ever like the idea of renting. I didn't like the idea of paying somebody else.
Italians hate that.
Yeah. I didn't like thinking about doing that. So I said, you know what? I'll suck it up. I'll commute. Didn't know what the traffic was going to be like from commuting from Meriden to Stanford.
Yep.
So the problem that I found was I was late for my first day of work because it took me 2.5 hours to get from Meriden to Stamford. And what I ended up having to do, because traffic was just so crazy, one thought was get a motorcycle and just weave in and out of traffic. My wife didn't like that. So I ended up having to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, get down pretty much in an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I stopped in Norwalk. I signed up at the Edge and worked out, showered, got dressed, and had a short drive to Stamford from there. I didn't want to say that wasn't sustainable, but it wasn't sustainable in this career because I would work until 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Especially during busy season, right?
Yeah, busy season was rough. So ended up meeting up with a couple of friends who were residents actually at Quinnipiac that lived in Stamford, had entry-level job positions, in the finance industry.
Yep.
And asked them if they were looking for a roommate. So that, probably 4 or 5 months into working at Deloitte, I was commuting that whole time. I ended up meeting up with a couple buddies that had, a spot open in their 6-family house in the projects of Stamford.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't a great living situation. I think my full-size bed took up the whole room. I was crawling around my bed to open up windows, and I think permanently had to leave my door open because it wouldn't close with the bed in the way. So worked down there I interned with them the year prior, and then I worked with them for a full year after that. But it was working 100 hours a week for the same amount of money. And I said, I know that I could do more. I know that I could be better.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. And that's why I left Deloitte, because we had a restaurant in Meriden at the time that we opened up while I was still in college. And I said, let me buy a piece of real estate so I could now own the real estate that the restaurant operates in. So that was the big thing for me, because when we opened up the restaurant in Meriden, we leased the space, and I didn't want to lease. I didn't want to pay rent in Stamford. I didn't want to lease a space, but I also didn't want to, buy a piece of property not knowing how my business was going to turn out.
Yeah.
So the first, place that we opened up, we did lease. And then when I got sick and tired of working all of those hours at Deloitte, my father and I identified a property in Niantic. It did not have a good running track record. It closed every couple of years, just kept changing hands. So we ended up writing a letter to the owner asking if the owner was interested in selling. And the owner wrote us a letter back and said, yes, what do you want to pay for it? Of course, I didn't know how to value commercial property at the time, so I said, what do you want for it? And he came back and said $225. Right off the cuff, we said, we'll give you $180. We ended up meeting somewhere in the middle at $204.
Yep.
Didn't do any inspections. I don't think water was turned on at the property. So we were a little nervous going in and buying this place with no inspection. But the idea was to turn it into a second location for our restaurant, and that we did exactly that. We literally deconstructed the whole property and had to rebuild the whole property. We probably put about $300,000
oh my gosh.
into remodel, repair, bringing things up to code.
So wait, you start this restaurant in Meriden in college. Who is it? You have any partners?
Yeah, so my dad, my aunt, and we had one other partner that was in on the idea.
Yep.
Being in college, I was an accounting major, but I also had to take different business courses. So I took marketing, I took finance, I took all of these different courses, and essentially what I wanted to do was apply all of my courses to the restaurant.
Yep.
And I did exactly that. Every single course, my friends were doing projects on my business.
No way.
They were developing business plans for my restaurant. So it was
That was
like
already
free
open.
labor. Yeah, it was free. Well, when I started, that's kind of when we were creating marketing plans and business plans and things like that. So it was free labor, and I got to listen to other minds creating my business. So I took the good ideas and I left out some of the bad ideas, and I essentially applied those into the business, which is why we started out and we're so successful at what we did. So we grew Meriden, the Meriden location, to a profitable number in, record timing.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really pay each other in the beginning. So we became very profitable in the beginning, and then we maintained profitability there. So
what was the concept? What'd you guys do? What kind of food?
Originally, the idea was frozen yogurt in 2011.
When the craze started.
And, my dad didn't want to spend $90,000 on ice cream machines because it's, he's like, I don't know if you're going to make out. And so we ended up identifying this space, already had a wood-fired oven in it. We said, let's start it out as a little Italian market. See how we do. We'll make pizza and some light original dinners. And that's exactly what we did. What we didn't know how to do is how to make pizza. Right? So we're a pizza joint, but we don't know how to make pizza.
Unreal.
And 2 weeks before opening, we renovated the whole space. We had, concepts and ideas, and we tried our first pizza. We had some of our salon buddies that came in and said, oh my God, if you're serving this, you're going to go under in the first week. And we didn't know what pizza was supposed to taste like. I'm like, I don't know what to do. How do we change it? And it took 2 weeks of figuring it out, trying different recipes, trying different things before we actually nailed it. And, that could have been really tragic if we didn't figure that out. So we narrowed down the recipe. The traditional Italian meals was easy because we got my aunt involved. And my aunt was a phenomenal cook. She cooked with her heart.
Yeah.
So it was hard to kind of come up with a standard operating procedures book. Because a little bit of this and a little bit of that doesn't go well in a recipe book. So my aunt was
a coffee cup of whatever flour.
a little bit of this. I'm like, how much is a little bit? She's like, like a handful. I'm like, that's not a little bit. So that's we started there with leasing and doing that, and then, switched gears, and, in 2015, we identified and purchased the real estate for Niantic. But the difference was that I own the property. 2016, we opened up that location.
Yep.
We are still open, operating there today.
Yep.
And we continue to do the same thing. Our goal was to be a little bit better every single day. And if we were a little better every single day, then, procedures and operations, logistics, everything would just get better. That's exactly what happened. Sales got better. COVID was, believe it or not, we made more money during COVID than before COVID. It was funny because I didn't think about it this way. I was getting ready to hand out pink slips to everybody in the restaurant. I didn't know what to do. They're like, we're shutting down. Restaurants are shutting down their dining rooms. And so I printed out all the pink slips, and I'm like, just waiting. I'm like, what do we do? My dad said, before we do this, why don't we just go pick up truckloads of pasta and flour and tomatoes and things like that so we could sustain, because we don't know where this is going to end up. People still have to eat. So although they shut down the dining room portion, we really kind of switched gears and focused more into takeout. And that's when curbside and things like that kind of came into play. We already had a leg up because we were offering online ordering, so people were able to order online. I ended up renumbering all of our parking spaces and offered curbside. Call us, tell us what parking spot you're in, and we would bring it out to you. So with half the staff and double the business, because there were companies that shut down during the pandemic, it allowed us bigger opportunities. So we ended up doubling our sales. We grew the company and maintained the company over $1 million a year. And it's just been, it's been incredible to see the growth. I mean, I was happy with when we started in Meriden and you made $500 for a full day. It's like, oh, that's great. You know, that's not bad. And to building up those Friday nights and Saturday nights to $1,000 and $1,700 was like a record. Yeah. And you know, if you look at the big picture, it's like, that's not really a lot of money. Especially when you're paying food expenses and you're paying employees and things like that. So when we opened up Niantic, the place was a little bit bigger. We had, you know, a lot of these takeout options. We incorporated our catering business. So our sales, you know, have doubled, tripled, quadrupled at this point. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. This is the money that we need to be making. But if you rest, even for a second, there is competition everywhere around you. So you really just need to stay on top of things, stay competitive, be cutting edge, constantly look for new opportunities, because if you become stale, you're essentially dead in the water. And it kind of leads me to something that I always refer to as, if you're not learning, you're not growing. Yeah. And if you're not growing, you're dying. I kind of live by that, you know, every day, because education to me is extremely important. And I think if you're not learning, then you're not growing. And if I'm not growing, then, you know, I'm going to become stale and, you know, not become extinct. Yeah. So that was something that I really lived by, to be a little bit better every single day. And that's kind of why I took, you know, operations, procedures, logistics and things like that into play. So I grew the restaurant, and
I want to say something really quick.
Sure.
Because if you rest for a second, there's competition everywhere. Yeah. David Sendra has a podcast called The Founders Podcast. Fantastic. And I think it was there where I heard it. I don't know if it was on Tiger Woods or some pianist, but like, if you take one day off, you feel it. If you're like an expert. Yeah. If you take 3 weeks off, other people start to notice it. And like, that's the same thing there. Like, you constantly have to be improving, because even like if you're in the gym and you take 2 days off, you feel it. Yeah. Maybe though, after a month of you doing it, other people notice it too. And it's like that, you know, I agree with that. It just made me think like, wow, it's a good point. Yeah. You got to constantly be like just chipping away, getting better, learning.
Yeah. If you're not pounding the pavement, I mean, people say you work all the time. I don't know how to turn my mind off. Yeah. My wife hates it. But even if I'm at home, I have to have my computer out. I have to be looking for opportunities. Building my portfolio is now, you know, something that I'm looking to do. And, you know, investment opportunities, multifamilies, getting into some sort of a commercial investment. These are opportunities that I want to fulfill. So if I take days off, I know people are like, well, you need a break sometimes. And although that's true, I can't sit still. I'm very type A. So I'm constantly looking for different opportunities, for different ways to make money. So that's kind of the goal right now for me.
I love that. And I think a part of it too is like kind of like working out. Like, you might lift weights one day, and then there's like active recovery days. You might go for like a 3-mile walk. You're not going to be like lifting weights. But so instead of doing like outbound prospecting, picking up the phone and dialing one day, like, all right, you've been done that 5 days, take a day off. But on the weekend, it's like, all right, what can I do to still move the business forward? Whether it's planning, whether it's social media, always doing something to push the ball forward. That's kind of how I feel. Even like a holiday, like I can 100%. Tell you, Christmas morning, like, is a big thing. Christmas, by 4 o'clock Christmas day, like, I'm gonna be like, all right, what am I gonna do? Like, let's crack open the bucket, you know.
To be honest with you, that's what I do. I mean, take Thanksgiving for an example. Thanksgiving, after we're done eating, I'm drafting up an email for a Black Friday special. Yeah.
So I love it for the restaurant.
Yeah, for the restaurant, whether it's gift certificates or, you know, offering a freebie, buy $100, get 20. When we first started, I thought selling a $25 gift certificate was great. I'm like, how do I get people to spend $100? And it was by offering these, these little freebies. And if I think about it, it's like, all right, it's like kind of like a 20% discount off their order. If I'm willing to do that anyway, I'd rather have the money now.
Yeah.
So that's what I started doing. So that's been, something that I constantly do every single year. But yeah, that was born on Thanksgiving.
That is awesome. By the way, I just did it because in my head, if you offer a $20 discount or giving them a $20 additional gift card and a $100 purchase, it's a 16% discount.
Perfect.
And also, you get to collect all the cash up front, $100.
Yeah.
They're not going to use the 120. So you get all the money up front, and then you don't have to worry about paying, waiting for it when they use it. And you hate to say it, but people sometimes lose gift cards. They go bad. So like the best business in the world is do that. If you get that rolling.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right. So Niantic, the COVID, you guys crush it. Awesome opportunity. You guys are doubling sales. You have to employ less people, less hours. So that helps with, improving profit margins.
Yep.
I know you buy a house in Niantic at that point too. You're trying to build a portfolio, but you bought Airbnb.
Yeah, I bought a single family property. I was a little nervous to buy it because I wasn't.
By the way, you're not in real estate at this point yet, right? Or you just become a realtor?
I think I just become a realtor
at this point. Okay, so let's start talking about that. So we'll talk about this deal and then you getting into real estate, okay?
All right.
So this single family, what's the story?
So this single family, I wasn't really, crazy about the location. I knew it was within a really nice beach association, but
Where's that?
This is Black Point in Niantic.
Yep.
A lot of people refer to it as New Black Point because Old Black Point is a lot of old money. So this is a New Black Point, and my mom really pushed me to make that step. She said, "You need your own house. You don't have to live there, but you need your own house." And
I gotta pause really quick.
Sure.
Because I should have asked this. What was the name of the restaurant in Niantic?
Costello of Niantic.
Costello of Niantic. Yep. Okay, fantastic. Just so people know too what we're talking about. We should have mentioned that. But okay, so sorry. So you're looking at this property, and what's your mom tell you?
So my mom is telling me that I need to buy a house. She said, this is the first step for you as an individual without partners or anybody else involved. You have to take that step to buying your first house. So there was a property on the market. It was on the market for about $300,000. This is in late 2016. So 2016, we identified this property. It's been sitting on the market for a while. Of course, I go back to my favorite number of 180. I'm like, I'm going to offer this guy 180,000 for this property.
So if you're negotiating against Stanley, be wary of that number.
180 means I really like it.
Yeah, they got you by the balls if they hear 180.
And so I offered the guy.
Cut that. No, I'm kidding.
offered the guy 180,000. He came back with a counter offer of 230. I again countered, and we ended up settling at 222. This property was a 3-season home and needed about $80, $90, $100,000 worth of renovation and repair. The guy was a plumber, and he had pipes running on the outsides of the walls because they kept bursting, and he kept replacing them but didn't want to open up walls to do it. So bought this property. We went under contract for 222. I had an inspection. I didn't even know, that you could ask for things on an inspection. So I ended up, what I did was I asked the guy for $11,000 off the purchase price because I knew there was work that needed to be done, but I didn't know what needed to be done because I didn't understand what the inspector was talking about. So I asked the guy for $11,000 off the purchase price. He agreed to give me $5,500. There was nothing wrong with the house. I don't know why he agreed to give me $5,500. I never listed it out. There was no bullet points. It was literally on the addendum. I said I would like $11,000 off of the purchase price. He ended up sending me one back saying I'll give you $5,500. We signed it. I ended up getting the house for $216,500. And it's been the best thing that I've ever done. It never felt like it was my property, and I ended up leasing the property after fixing it and living in it for that 12 month, and then my needs changed, and I was collecting, I think at that time, about $2,000 a month, just on rent, and I was able to move back in with my parents because I was still young. I must have been 24 years old at this point. Moved back in with my parents, collected rent, continued to work, saved up money for my next deal. And then my next deal was buying another property for myself, but knowing that I only needed to put 5% down to do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did. My wife and I bought our next property in 2018, which was 2 years. It was maybe a year and 2 months after this. And that's kind of how we started. And it's been a snowball effect since. So getting into the real estate business was 2015, right around that time when I was buying that property. I was getting my master's, and my sister asked me if I would go to real estate school with her and help her get her real estate license because she wasn't made out for school. And although real estate was a passion of mine, I didn't know, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah, of course, I'll sign up. And
another example, not knowing the opportunity that might lay ahead. Crazy.
Exactly. So I said yes, and went to real estate school, and it was, I can't remember if it was a 6-week or 12-week or whatever it was, but I was getting my master's. I said, my workload's not that crazy. I'll absolutely take the class with you. Well, fast forward, I took the class, I took the test, I passed the test, I got my license. My sister didn't take the test, never got her license.
Yep.
Didn't really love real estate.
Gotcha.
As much as I did. And now, I got my real estate license. I didn't know what to do with it because at the time I was in public accounting. I'm like, what am I going to do with this real estate license? I was opening up a restaurant. I was in public accounting, and always had my hands in multiple different pots, but kept up with my license, kept up with my continuing education. And it was around 2017 where I really thought that I needed to take my real estate business to the next level. Nobody really knew that I was a realtor. People got me confused very easily with the restaurant. Oh, Stanley, he's the restaurant guy. I didn't want to be known as the restaurant guy. The reason I got into the restaurant was to own the real estate. Real estate was the passion. So I wanted to be known as the real estate guy, and that's kind of when things started to change for me. And 2017, I joined another new brokerage that I've been with since then. And it was about education, right? So going back to education and learning and growing. I didn't even know how to write a contract. I didn't know anything getting into this business. And, Calcani Real Estate taught me from A to Z what I needed to do and how to get it done. So I was extremely thankful for that and getting a little bit better every day. Even in a falling market, my production this year is over 70% from where I was last year.
Wow.
So constantly improving and tweaking and
why is that? What are you doing?
Well, I come up with a schedule. I have a to-do list every single day. And if I write all of my tasks out, I know how to prioritize what's most important. Yep. So prospecting and reaching out to my past clients. Now that I have past clients, in the beginning it was reaching out to anybody that I knew. One of the things that I did was I created a list of vendors. So it was accountants, it was florists, it was pet shops and plumbers and electricians and all sorts of things. And I didn't know every single person in that industry. So I made it a goal of mine to go out and meet someone in that industry. So if I didn't have an electrician, I would make it a point to go out and network with some electricians, whether it was giving them some work and asking them if they wanted a cup of coffee, or you don't normally take out an electrician or your florist. You just go and you support them. So that's what I did. I called these people, whoever seemed nice. I tend to attract nice people. Whether it's clients or friends or anything. I attract nice people. So if they seemed nice, I wanted to give them an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's how I got to meet a lot of people. And my network has been, primarily, I live in Southington.
Yep.
So it's been the middle of the state. And it's also in Niantic, where I have a lot of great deep connections in that area. So I really kind of focus my real estate business in predominantly those two markets. Anywhere in between also works. So I travel from anywhere from New Haven down to the East Lyme area, all the way up to the Hartford, Glastonbury area, and then back down to Southington. And that's how I got started, and coming up with that checklist every single day just made me pound the pavement. It's like for an hour, I'm going to call people or I'm going to text people, because, getting someone on the phone is obviously the best. But sometimes people don't answer you. They think you're too salesy, or they think they're trying to sell them something. That wasn't the point. The point of my business was trying to build relationships.
Yeah.
And if I could connect you, if you have a need, then I want to connect you with the right people. And that's kind of how I started my business, was just by connecting with people and making sure that they got what they needed. And they thought of me as the real estate expert.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. That's how I started. And I still hold true to a lot of those things today, was continue to educate people, continue giving people resources, help them achieve what they want. And in the end, they're gonna call you, because you're gonna be their trusted advisor. And that's kind of how I started building that database.
That's awesome. Sticking to the basics there. I love how you say, though, you want to educate them, help them achieve what they want, whether it's a lot of wealth creation at the end of the day.
Yeah. Just figuring out somebody's pain.
Yeah.
And then going in and making that ask, but tailoring it to their pain point. At the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to help people achieve their goals.
Yeah.
And hopefully at one point, they're going to keep that in mind. As long as we stay top of mind, they're going to refer us to other people and build our network, because our network is always going to be our net worth.
So how do you promote your business now?
I promote my business through Instagram primarily. I am on Facebook.
Yep.
I promote my listings and I promote my business, a little bit differently.
Yep.
I don't necessarily believe in print media
Yep.
anymore, but I do think that's something tangible. When I'm listing somebody's property, they're essentially hiring me to market their home to every single person that may be interested. So I still do believe that, print and having something tangible, whether it's a handwritten note or whether it's a letter with my signature on it, inviting them to my open house, is still extremely important. So I utilize the social media platforms to get it out to the Gen Z and the millennials and things like that. But sometimes print actually works. So what I do is I used to blast out postcards, and you ordered thousands and thousands and thousands of postcards. I never got anything from it. I would farm areas, never got a thing from it. So I switched it up a little bit, and I started writing letters and sending out 100 letters.
Literally handwrite every letter.
Handwrite every single letter. I know they have businesses that, have computers do that now, but that's what I was doing. And I was sending those out on blank envelopes with my name as the return address. I figured out everybody's address in a vicinity in the area of the listing. And I started getting people to call me.
Wait, so you'd send a letter in the top left corner is your return address, and then the middle's blank?
The middle, I addressed it directly to them.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So I addressed it directly to the recipient.
Yep.
And, again, sending thousands and thousands of postcards, I never got anything back. So when I started handwriting all of these letters and not sounding so salesy, it was, hey, I'm listing your neighbor's property. Come check it out. We're doing an open house on X date. It really was able to drive traffic to the listing. People reached out to me, and I was able to gather their phone number. I was able to gather their email address, and they asked me for any questions. Of course, you're going to get those people that call you and say, hey, the seller didn't mow the lawn in 6 weeks. Can you get the lawn mowed? Yes. But it's all about starting those conversations. And if you're meeting these people's expectations, like getting the lawn mowed, they're going to say, wow, this guy took care of it. He really hopped on it. So even though it wasn't like a quick, easy, oh my God, I'm going to, sell the neighbor's property tomorrow, it was an opportunity for me to engage and build a relationship with those people. So that has been extremely successful, extremely rewarding for me and my business, for a long time now.
That is awesome. I was going to say build relationships. That's what you're doing, but you hit it right on the head. I had on Dr. Esposito a couple of guests ago, and he says he doesn't write out his tasks, but he, same thing, prioritizes them and then knows what he needs to attack and what's most important to him. I love that you do that. And he also says, say yes more often. He said the exact same thing word for word.
Really?
So, yeah, it was crazy. He's a very successful guy, lives an awesome life on his own terms. Let's talk about getting involved, though, with Mid-State Association of Realtors and CT, associate or CT Realtors, because that's saying yes more often. What drove you to do that? Because now you're the incoming president for Mid-State, right? Or you are?
Yeah. So I get installed on January 17th.
Wow.
As the president of Mid-State.
Fantastic. Taking over for Dave Oriema, right? Did I say
that? Or Gemma.
Oh, that's how you say it.
I think. I mean, he's Italian. The G's supposed to be silent. So I'm going to be the incoming president.
Great guy, though.
After Dave. Dave's awesome. And I don't even know where it began.
Yeah.
I joined Calcaney. They were all about getting involved, which I loved. And I essentially just kind of attached myself and said, I need to learn everything about this business because if I'm not learning, then I'm not growing. And one day somebody asked, I think it was my office manager, she said, hey, does anybody have interest in being on the board of directors for Mid-State, which was our association that we had a partnership and a membership with. And right off the bat, I said, absolutely, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It sounds great. Like board of directors, I was, again, 24 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought it sounded great. I said, it's going to be a great resume builder. I didn't know what the goal was. I didn't know what I could do. So I joined the board. In the first 2 years on the board, I was surrounded by people that have been in the industry for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yep.
And I was intimidated because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going on. And then finally, you just continue to network with these people on a one-on-one basis. And I became a little bit more comfortable that I started voicing my opinion and my thoughts and ideas. So one thing led to another. I was nominated as president-elect for the association, and it's something I would have never even dreamed of.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a duty. I thought it was something that I really had to take by the horns and take seriously because we have a membership of about 1,200 agents.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be a different role. It's going to be something that I've never really have done in the past. But it's extremely exciting because if I could bring education in such a tough time that the real estate market is in right now, if I could bring more education, and I could promote our members, we're going to be able to show more value for our members. So that's one of the things that I really want to kind of get across in my 1-year term. Hopefully, there's opportunity in the future to grow within this industry and with Connecticut Realtors and NAR, as the overarching membership. So, again, would have never imagined that I would be sitting in this position, but I'm extremely excited to get started, to really work with people. And the people that I'm working with are industry leaders. I mean, these people have been in the business for, like I said, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
They are industry leaders. They are top listing agents. They are top realtors in our area. These are people that have knowledge, have education, have experience, and we're constantly learning from each other about our industry and what we strive for as an industry. I mean, we go to bat for the landlords. We go to bat for investors. We do so much, and
behind the scenes
that people don't know that we do. They're like, why do we pay this? Why do we get involved with this? It's because of the network. I mean, the people that you sit beside are incredible agents. They're incredible people. And if you could learn together and educate each other, you could grow together. And that's been the primary focus for my presidency, is working together, learning together, and growing together.
I think that's awesome. I think it's the 1 + 1 = 3.
Exactly. That
mindset there.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. And then the other thing that you wrote down is, I'm going to ask you about the recent news with lawsuits and all that, which we didn't plan for, but it'd be a good question.
Sure.
But advocating for landlords, like, imagine you get rid of real estate agents. Real estate agents are advocating for landlords, people that own investment properties, people that want to buy real estate. If you get rid of those or cut commission, people leave business, you're losing a lot of people that promote, home ownership. They want to see people buy investment properties. And like, now I'm thinking of like somebody that owns investment properties themselves, like that. It's not good. Like, you want people advocating for you for that.
Exactly. Especially, I mean, the biggest thing was rent control. If rents were to be controlled,
which is awful,
it's going to decentivize landlords and investors to improve their property. And if they say, okay, well, you could only charge $800 per month for rent, and your numbers are just not there. If your return is just not there, why would you invest more money to fix that property up? You're not. You're going to leave the old appliances. You're not going to paint. You're not going to fix the light that's hanging. You're not going to fix the water leak that's in the basement or upgrade to a more efficient heating system. So it's really important to have people like this fighting for those rights. So rent control is a bad thing. We're not going to have the investors and the people that want to invest in this real estate if we do have those. So people advocating for those things is incredible. So that's part of what we do and what we support.
Awesome. What do you think about the news? Do you have any comments on that? I don't really know what's going on. Like, I'm not people on the lending side. How does it impact you? It's like, I got to see how things play out. I have no idea.
I think it's extremely unfortunate to be in the position that we are, because I think it's extremely important for buyers to have representation in the market. A lot of these buyers, especially first-time home buyers, they've never gone through the process. They don't know what to expect. They were like me. I didn't know I could ask for something on a home inspection because I didn't know what the home inspector was saying. So one thing that I really like to say is, 20, 25 years ago, realtors were the gatekeepers of real estate. We had the MLS books. We were
online, no Zillow. You couldn't go on,
There wasn't Zillow. There wasn't, the Realtor.com and the Redfin and things like that. So we were truly the gatekeepers. If you wanted to sell your property, you would go to a realtor and list your property. Once a month, it would get printed in the MLS book, and there it was. You would put it in the newspaper. So 20, 25 years ago, we were the gatekeepers of real estate, but we've kind of transitioned and transformed, and now we are the interpreters of real estate. So gatekeepers and interpreters, that's really what we are. We're really interpreting the information that we receive and that we see. These clients see the information. They see how many bedrooms, they see how many bathrooms, but they don't know what a lead disclosure is.
Yeah.
They don't know what a mold disclosure is. They don't know, what an inspector's talking about when an inspector gives you a 65-page report after a 4-hour inspection on a property. So we need to interpret that information for them and translate that into something that they understand. And I think that's the biggest unfortunate, situation is, these people don't understand how important buyer representation is. So, us as an industry, we're going to continue to fight to make sure that people understand how important it is. Because although the buyer is essentially benefiting right now, sellers become buyers all the time. So if you don't pay it on one end, you're paying it on the other. It's kind of like taxes.
Yeah.
You get a credit in the beginning and then you got to pay it at the end, or vice versa. So I think the industry is absolutely under attack, but I think we're going to pull through. Consumers need to have representation available if they want it. So I think we're going to pull through it. It's the waters are a little muddy right now, but I know for a fact, deep in my heart that we're going to pull through.
There's professionals in every business, people that aren't professionals, good, bad actors, educated, uneducated. And from my point of view, I work with a lot of first-time home buyers where we hold their hand from the initial consultation to going under to putting offers in, updating pre-approvals, walking them through numbers, then doing the next steps call once they're under contract, and then, working with them when they're in underwriting to get to clear close. And it is very much so a handhold, which is okay. But if somebody didn't have an agent on the buyer side to represent them, they would get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
They would get raked over the coals. If I was a seller, I would want to take every dollar that person has.
Yeah.
And that's how you got to think. It's not like people are playing nice in the sandbox. You need somebody there like teaching you. It's a professional. Yeah, it's in your corner. As simple as asking for a credit on an inspection. If your agent can save you a couple thousand, a few thousand, pays for, whatever you were thinking you would have to come up with.
Right.
And you get your agent's network of people. Like your Angie list of contractors that you've vetted already.
Yeah.
Just think about the time saved, or you hire one bad, whatever profession, it could be a plumber, let's say.
Yep.
If they just went to an agent that had a reputable list already, save yourself time, headache, and money.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of things that people aren't looking, they look at the commission, the number, and that's it. They're not looking at the big picture of where can they save money, what resources, what network does somebody have that would benefit them. So
yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see how it plays out. Well, this was a blast, dude.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's my first podcast, so love it.
Good. We'll do this again next year. We'll make this a yearly thing. We come in, we update, we see how we gave a background, and we'll see how things progress, and we'll rock and roll, okay?
Awesome. Sounds good.
Dude, stand a blast.
Thanks so much.
See you, bro.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shane.